clicked on this video, you have probably been wondering why dogs have wet noses. This question was actually brought up by my youngest daughter the other day. And when she asked me, and as we were talking about it and talking about dogs' noses and their sense of smell, I thought that this would be a really interesting video to share because I'm sure there are other people out there wondering the same thing. Why are dogs' noses wet? So most people know or have heard that a healthy dog's nose is moist and cold to the touch. There are many reasons why your dog's nose is wet or moist. But there are also some common misconceptions that I wanted to clear up. The biggest one being that you may have heard if your dog's nose is dry that the dog is sick. That isn't always true. So we live in Maine, the weather's getting colder. Oftentimes when the cold air, it's really dry, cold air in Maine in the wintertime. And a lot of times in the winter, our dogs will have dry, cracked noses. That's really common. It doesn't mean your dog's sick. It just means they need a little bit of nose balm on there to help to moisten their nose again. It just means that the air is too dry. And oftentimes they're outside and it's really cold and it just does some damage to that sensitive skin of the nose. It doesn't mean your dog's sick. The moisture level of your dog's nose is gonna fluctuate from day to day, from hour to hour. It's not always going to be, as moist as you can see the moisture on the nose. And then the other times, especially like in the summer, and if your dog's panting, you might even be able to see drips of moisture coming off the nose. So it's gonna fluctuate. A dry nose doesn't necessarily mean that your dog isn't feeling well. On the other hand, a dry nose can be cause for concern if your pet is actually feeling sick or warm. So if your dog's showing any other signs of not feeling well, if he's licking his nose a lot, if you notice signs of a cough or a cold or a fever, those are causes for concern. If a dry nose is the only symptom, it's probably not an issue. If it is accompanied with other symptoms, then it's time to call your veterinarian and just get your pup checked out. So, why do dogs have wet noses? Did you know that dogs have more than 100 million sensory receptors in their nasal cavities compared to 6 million in people? Also, the area of a dog's brain that is used to decipher smells is 40 times larger in a dog than the same part of the human brain that's used to decipher smells. It's almost impossible to get an exact number, but research has shown that dogs can smell anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 times better than humans, which is partly due to the presence of an additional olfactory tool. Olfactory just means your sense of smell. So they have an additional tool, which is called Jacobson's organ, that increases their ability to smell. Jacobson's organ is located inside the nasal cavity, and it actually opens into the roof of their mouth behind the incisors on their top teeth. This organ actually serves as a second olfactory system, which is designed specifically for chemical communication. Dogs' noses work best when they're damp because scent particles stick better to damp surfaces. So it's natural, it's nature, it's the way that dogs have evolved over time. Obviously, a wet nose is going to help them smell better than a dry nose. Wet noses have another advantage too. They actually help to keep your dog cool. Dogs do dissipate some heat through the pads in their paws and by panting, but they also utilize the nasal cavities as a cooling mechanism too. The nose secretes mucus the same way that our noses do. The inner lining of the dog's nose contains special glands that produce mucus to keep the nasal canals moist at all times. A thin layer of mucus clings to the nostrils, which enhances the absorption of scent chemicals and improves the dog's ability to smell. So having a wet nose, number one, helps your dog smell better, which is how dogs explore and learn about the world around them. So their sense of smell is really important for them. And having a wet nose just helps to, heighten that sense of smell. The special mucus glands inside the nostrils also produce clear, watery fluid that aids in the cooling process, as I said, because when that moisture evaporates, it helps to cool, just like when we sweat because when that sweat evaporates, it cools our skin. And a dog's nose has that same sort of system that when there's moisture there and then it dries, it helps to cool your pet because dogs don't sweat the way that humans do. So there are a number of reasons why your dog's nose is wet, and just keep in mind that a dry nose doesn't necessarily mean that your dog isn't feeling well.